Welcome to Marine Tech Talk, a podcast about how Teledyne Marine's innovative technologies are enabling scientific discoveries and commercial tasks in the world's oceans and waterways. On this episode of the podcast, we meet Matt Nichols, president and owner of Survey Systems in Evergreen, Colorado. Survey Systems is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business that does geodetic and hydrographic surveying work for a variety of customers. Matt has been working the hydrographic side of surveying for the past 15 years and recently purchased an Oceanscience Z-Boat in early 2019. Some of the areas that Matt and his team need to survey are in remote locations, making the Z-Boat an ideal small survey platform for those shallow, remote, and high-altitude locations. Now here's Matt Nichols with the host of Marine Tech Talk, Melissa Rossi.
Matt, I know that you are the owner of Survey Systems out in Colorado. Could you tell me a little bit about your company and what you all do?
Hi, Melissa. Thanks for having us. So I'm Matt Nichols. I'm the owner of Survey Systems out of Evergreen, Colorado. We're a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business land surveying firm doing geodetic work, hydrographic work in Colorado. We do everything from heavy civil hospitals, high-rises, to general lot surveys. And about 15 years ago, we were working for a couple of engineering firms, and that started us down the path for hydrographic surveying. I was in the Coast Guard for 7 years, retired out of there. I was service disabled, and so went to school from the VA for geodetic engineering, and then ended up buying a survey firm and heading down the path where we find ourselves now. It only made sense to tie land surveying to the water, which I know both, so we put them together, and here we are.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's good. It makes perfect sense with your background too from the Coast Guard, and thank you for your service too. How long have you had your Z-Boat at this point? When did you get it?
We purchased our Z-Boat 1250 at the beginning of last year. So into the early 2019, we had a need for the current platform we were on was not meeting our needs. And our path down hydrographic surveying it disclosed to us pretty quickly that the data we were collecting, we weren't able to correct for sound velocity and being able to log it inside of HYPACK like we do with our other platforms. We had a serious need for it. I had met I believe, in Washington State. We went out there for a little seminar they were putting on, and I saw the Z-Boat, and I put my order in right after that, and we've been running with it ever since. We're really happy with it.
Oh, that's great. That must have been a great demo too.
Yeah.
I got your order right afterwards. That's great. What type of surveying do you do with the boat now? We
work for a great many of the water districts in Colorado, and water being the new gold, and Colorado being the top of the mountains where the water is generated at. The state of Colorado and the water districts collaboratively are trying to increase their storage capacity. And a lot of the work that we do is to go into old reservoirs built in the early 1900s that really no one knows what's on the bottom any longer, and doing stage capacities, single beam, multi-beam surveys in order to update their stage capacities to find out what the sedimentation load is, and then pre-dredge, post-dredge in high alpine lakes at times, some really difficult reservoirs to get to, object detection, just the full line of service for hydrographic depends on what they need. So we work for large and small water districts.
Have some of those you had mentioned the high altitude ones, have those been surveyed before, or is this the first time they've been surveyed?
For instance, last year we worked on one that was up at about 11,000 feet. So right near the spine of the Continental Divide. There's always been a lake there, which was glacial in nature. So that was kind of a cirque where everything kind of pulled out of. So there's a lake that was up there. And what they did is they built a dam and increased its capacity, but no one has ever seen that reservoir empty. And so they had no idea really what was going on down in the bottom of it. So in order to realize their full augmentation plan and how much water they can divert and things of that nature, we had to go travel for a day and a half just to get there. And then we spent 3 days at 11,000 feet mowing the lawn, going back and forth to get a stage capacity curve in a reservoir that nobody's ever seen the bottom of.
Wow. That must have been something.
It was really pretty. That lake was unbelievable. I was like, wow. I had no idea it was there, to be honest with you.
I bet a lot of people don't know it's there.
Yeah.
But it must have been beautiful. When you were up there, what kind of gear and how many people does it take to do a survey like that?
On that particular project, there was a crew of 3. So one was, initially we had to set up control for it. So we stacked in some GPS work and then traveled back to town and processed that. And then there were 3 of us. So we were running our 12-foot pontoon, which is called Thumper, which has a CV200 made by Odom, Teledyne Odom, CV200 with we're running and logging at a high pack at the same time, but running the Z-Boat simultaneously at the same time and logging both data on that reservoir. So there were 2 of us that were on that smaller boat, the 12-foot pontoon, and running the Z-Boat. And then there was one guy doing cross sections from the overflow weir elevation all the way around that reservoir to develop the entire picture of what the total capacity could be on that project. So there were 3 of us we took up there.
What was the advantage of using the Z-Boat up there, do you think?
I didn't realize it was going to be as critical to our operation as it has become. It's really reliable compared to the last platforms we worked with. But where we mostly use the Z-Boat is to get into the areas that gets dangerous for us to get into. So we send it into the really shallow water, like 1.5 feet, 2 feet of water, 10 feet off the shore, to collect those areas where we've had issues, running aground, hitting rocks. In the Rocky Mountains, there's a lot of rocks. And so if we can keep our boats and the crews in about 10 feet of water and then send the Z-Boat up, that's the ideal situation. And that Z-Boat's been a real workhorse for us. The amount of time we can keep it on the water with its battery capacity and streaming data back to the boat and being able to see where we've been, logging data in the matrix. I mean, it's the real deal. So we've had a lot of success with it, and it's actually allowed us to work a lot quicker than our old work processes.
So you said you were up there for 3 days collecting data, huh?
The first day was to set up the control, and then started with the cross sections from the reservoir's edge, and then day 2 and 3 we were running lines, so we were able to develop our border and then develop our planned lines, and then day 2 and 3 was hydrographic work and groundwork at the same time. If I was running the old process the way we were working before, we would have been up there at least a week.
Wow.
To get that one done.
So that was a good savings in time.
Yes, it did. It really has allowed us to move a lot quicker, especially, with the smaller projects. So the smaller projects are the tough ones. It seems like the bigger it is, the easier it is. So you can cover a lot of ground, you got good water, but the smaller projects, you don't know what you're going to run into.
I believe that.
You don't know what you're going to find.
I thought did I see a post from you recently that had the Z-Boat running near a waterfall? Yeah,
that was this year. That was actually last month. We did another reservoir in northern Colorado. Again, it has never, I think that dam was built in the 1920s, and it has been used for a reservoir company up until that point, and no one's ever really seen it completely empty. But yeah, we used the Z-Boat there for the shallow water work, and then in this particular location, the dam was a waterfall. So it's got a weir, a drop structure that waterfalls. And we were running the 25-foot boat there, which obviously we didn't want to get close to that waterfall. So we sent that Z-Boat up like 5 feet right from the edge of it. And we were able to log that data that we traditionally would not get. That job was spec'd out as single beam. That's what the client wanted. If it was multi-beam, we would have been able to angle ahead and get it, but they wanted single beam data. So we were able to collect that data. It was pretty crazy. I didn't know if it was going to come back one time, but it did. We just turned it and gunned it, and it got away from it. So it was pretty neat. But yeah, you can get it just about anywhere.
Yeah, that was a pretty awesome looking video.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a pretty awesome looking video to see it running right on the edges, all the water's cascading down. You're like, oh, it's got a little power there to be able to stay there and not go down the falls.
Yep, it is. And it's really a lot better. So the previous platform we were working on was more of a tractor setup, and this one has throttle and right left. So we're able to maintain control of it much better, and it tracks. So when you tell it to go straight, it goes straight. When you tell it to turn right, it turns right. And the other boats wasn't necessarily the case. You know, and then it would lose connectivity all the time. But this has been a much more reliable platform for us.
As far as travel goes, so how broad of an area do you cover for the surveys? I mean, where do you all go for surveys?
Well, you know, hydrographic surveying and a lot of the work that we do, I'm a professional land surveyor and a certified federal surveyor, and I'm licensed in multiple states. A lot of the work that we do in land surveying and hydrographic surveying, hydrographic surveyors, I believe, are used to this, but we cover all of the Big West. We've worked in New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, Nevada, Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming, Utah, Idaho, and Washington State. I don't think I've worked in Oregon yet. There is talk that we're going to be going that way, but our clients always ask, are you willing to travel? And our answer always is only if you're willing to pay. You know, so if you pay us to travel, we go. We understand what it is, you know, what it is to get to the work and get it done. But that's kind of like our specialty too. You know, I believe that we have a pretty good reputation to just give it to survey systems and get out of the way.
All right, great. So do you have a next job planned for the Z1250?
I do. I have two that I'm looking at right now, and they're little, believe it or not, like, you know, little ponds and parks for just down the hill from Evergreen, Colorado. They're very interested in that. And then I have another one that's called Mile High Lakes. I believe it has 8 smaller lakes involved in it. 2 of them aren't that small, but the others are. But yeah, the word is spreading, and people have found us, and we got a full schedule. So we're just going. I was glad I have in town for this so that we could get this done. We've been trying to do it for a couple of weeks, I think.
Oh, that's great. I'm super happy that you're able to join us today on the show. I'd love to maybe catch back up with you again sometime in the future after you've had a chance to do some other jobs, and we can come back and talk about those. If anybody is interested, like I said, in reaching you, all your information is on your website. Other than that, we can link this podcast to the couple of videos and to your YouTube channel for you too.
That sounds great. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks for listening to the Marine Tech Talk podcast. To learn more about survey systems and the work that Matt and his team are doing, you can visit www.surveysystems.net. And we'll also put links to the company's LinkedIn and YouTube accounts in the notes for this episode. If you have any questions or comments about this show, you can email host Melissa Rossi at marinetechtalk@teledyne.com. If you like this podcast, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're hearing this show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time.